Hey, everybody. Coming up on today's podcast, Elon says he's going to block Apple CarPlay in Teslas. And hey, speaking of Apple CarPlay, there may be a new feature available to you soon for all you gearheads out there. So let's pay attention to that. We'll get into that a little bit. Toyota gets caught red-handed. Not good, not good, not good. We'll get into that. Now, one customer of Tesla on his Cybertruck has given it a finish that might be posing a bit of a problem for folks. And, hey, we're asking, is the Ford family actually saving Detroit right now? We'll talk a little bit about some additions to the city, the improvements to the city. Fisker says, we don't need no stinking parts. This thing's perfect. Anyway, Hyundai sued for child labor laws. Interesting. We'll get into that. And another major Toyota recall. And there you have it, guys. All of that coming up on today's show right after this. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast. The best podcast in the world, The Counter Show. Say hello to my friend Keith. Keith, what's going on, my friend?
I always enter on the wrong side. What's happening to everybody? It's a software thing.
No, I get it. It just doesn't let you. It's a default to that side.
It wants me to be on the right.
Speaking of left and right, do you sleep on the left side of the bed or the right side of the bed? Is that like a thing with you guys?
Yeah, I got a side.
Okay. Yeah, I think we all do, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
so, I think we all do. So,
two things, everybody. Number one, this is going to be a good one because Jay made the show notes and he's in rare form, and I'm excited to be a part of this. So he was having a good time with. We usually outline the show, and we've traded places, or I've influenced you to the point where I don't know if that's a good thing or not, man, but it's gonna be fun.
That's a good thing.
And for
growth
for those of you that are catching this that are not longtime listeners, thank you for checking us out. We are an automotive centric podcast, but we talk about all kinds of pop culture stuff. It's called The Counter Show because you don't just talk about cars at the auto parts counter. And sometimes we might get into the new Beyonce album. Sometimes we might get into...
that girl's gone country.
Yeah. We've talked about some crazy stuff here. We get into a little AI conversations, technology, music. It's all fair game. Cocktail of the week. Jay went bike packing last time.
I do that.
Previously on the Counter Show, Jay goes bike packing.
I went bike packing. I've had a colonoscopy. Yep. I mean, all clean, by the way. All clean.
See what you guys are missing. If you you can go back and listen to those. That's the good news. So thank you guys for giving us a shot. If you're seeing this on the YouTube side, you can find us on our website at partscounterguru.com, and we've got a podcast tab, and it'll take you to whatever your favorite podcast platform is. You can find a link there for it where you can find our show.
Exactly. And speaking of podcasts, Keith, don't we have another one?
Yeah. Okay. So we do it's a different format. It's called the AI Chronicles. We're going to mention this a couple times. Yeah.
Also on this YouTube channel, for those of you who are watching.
We have a separate, I don't know, tab, whatever you want to call it. You can find it over there.
Playlist.
Yeah, playlist. There you go. Thanks, Jay. And you can also find that on our website. Same website. I'm not going to say it again. Hit rewind, 30 seconds. You can find it. And that's going to
Absolutely.
come up again. So just remember, right? We're going to get to that in a second. Okay, so Jay, let's just go
listening,
ahead and
sir.
clear the air here. All right. I just
Yes.
figured out how to do polls for YouTube. Now, I know you can do polls for
That's
Instagram. Okay.
It is polling
Previously
season.
on the Counter Show, we talked about Jay's new car search, and we asked you guys for advice on that. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it and know that there was a poll on the YouTube version, and I think we're going to drop an Instagram short that'll have a poll on it too. But you can vote. You can make suggestions on what you think Jay should consider for his next vehicle.
I'm looking for the answers, folks. I need
We're
your
going to do
help.
the same thing here. So let me set this up, okay? So
Yes, do it.
Jay and I have had a lot of conversations over the past, well, really our entire time as friends, but especially the past
Yeah.
couple weeks where we've had some really, really, really unbelievably bad things in terms of work effort. Jay's had some postal service woes. He's had some IRS woes. And it kind of boils down to this unbelievable scenario of people just not giving a shit, right?
Phoning
I had
it
a
in,
guy at the parts counter, and then nobody knows me. I don't want to be known, and I'm
Right.
unassuming. And I go in and I did my
Right.
homework, and I had a bad battery, and it was brand new. It was under warranty, and I took it in and was trying to tell the guy the steps that I'd taken, and he asked me. This is like the second or third time that I've gotten the "How long have you been a?" I got it from Cummins, and then
Right.
I got it. This guy was like, "How long have you been a mechanic?" So here's the poll. Here's the poll question for this. If you're seeing this on YouTube, or if you're listening to it, you can listen on YouTube Music. You go over and do the poll on the YouTube channel.
Sure you can.
Do you guys want us to do a podcast episode where we go into what's wrong with the world? Because it's going to be a little bit of us kind of laying out our grievances, the airing of the grievances.
And tell them what that will encompass. I mean, because the things.
Why don't
and
you tell
Here's
them?
why we're asking. Well, the bottom line is this: is that we want to talk about these things, but you guys tell us if you want to hear more about it. But we just kind of feel as consumers. Everybody's consumers. We're all consumers, and there just seems to be this increasing lack of, for lack of better terms, give a shit. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, do you guys and I'm not pointing fingers at everyone, but I want to hear your experiences, and do you want us to talk about that? In fact, tell us your experience in the poll, the comment, or whatever, and we'll talk about it. I mean, because it seems to be increasingly the norm anymore in whatever field there is, food service, whatever, automotive service, walking into a retail store, trying to find someone to help you in a retail store. There you go, right? But the bottom line is we sense we got us a little problem.
I'm gonna
here.
have to sit on my hands. You just have not taken the bait, man. You just threw out a couple things there that I could go long form on, and I'm gonna have to restrain myself here. So yeah.
Okay, you gonna hold back? Poll people. Poll people. Do you want us to talk about it? Right? And
Yep.
is that what it?
Yep.
Yep. Answer the questions, peeps.
Should
Come
we do
to
a
us.
podcast
Help us out.
on the airing of the grievances?
Absolutely.
Right.
The normal
Yep.
BS. The normal BS anymore that we have. Yes, let's do that. So
Now,
but yeah, so
I'm not.
go ahead.
This is different than kind of corporate conflicts and being upset or disagreeing over the direction that a company takes in a product. Like, let's just be clear on that, right? This is straight up like just people not giving a shit, like you said, right?
Example. Let me just throw
Sure,
an
go
example,
ahead.
a personal
Go ahead.
experience
Yep.
of mine. Okay, this was not me going to purchase anything, right? So here in our community, they're running fiber everywhere, right? So that means they have to come in and dig trenches and to existing property. make a mess of
Yep.
things, right? So that means big, loud concrete saws, asphalt saws, backhoes, big tractors with saw blades on them that cut through asphalt that are the size of a pickup truck, you know. Anyway, so they started this week here and in our community, and we are a private community. They started cutting at 7 a.m. in the morning, and we had no idea. So I walk out the door to ask if they would like for me to move my vehicle so that they were not like leaning on it as they're cutting the asphalt. And I got a smart answer back. And I looked at the guy and I looked him square in the face and said, you know, you do realize that this is a private community. And we could have said, wait till 8, but we didn't. We thought that you guys might wait till 8. You know, there's people sleeping in here. So anyway, this guy was in the neighborhood all week long doing his thing. But every time I would drive by him, he would give me the Clint Eastwood look like, get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
That's perfect.
First time, Jay.
Yes.
Just had it queued. Yeah.
Yes. Just had it queued. But that's no lie, man. This guy was like staring. He would stare me down like, go ahead, you know, make my day kind of a thing, you know. And I'm like,
You know what
really?
you should have told
Are
him?
you- What?
I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
I love it. I love it. But that's the kind of stuff we're
Yeah.
talking about, guys. It's just that people are just, you know, no matter what walk of life you're in, you know, we all have to work, and we all have to encounter others while we're working in most cases. So why not just be nice and do your job? And you know,
In the words of the late great Patrick Swayze from the movie Roadhouse, be nice.
be nice.
Get off my lawn.
That was a perfect cue, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
I told you this is going to be a good one. So,
yeah. Anyway,
on the same note of conflicts, you know, perfect segue here since Jay, you know, mentioned conflicts. Elon Musk, who, okay, so interestingly, Jay, kind of year one of our show, we spent a lot of time talking about Tesla, and it was because of the innovation, because it was newsworthy, it was worth talking about. They were changing, they were innovating, right?
that's right.
And then, I don't know, found some other things to talk about. There were Ford doing some game-changing things. There was all kinds of stuff, right? So here we are in kind of year 5, year 6, and we got Elon Musk himself kind of dominating the news cycles for various reasons. So we talked previously about kind of the showdown where he was trying to reclaim a certain shareholder stake in Tesla and making ultimatums. Now,
Oddly enough, I talked with a shareholder last night, by the way.
Did they know?
That is, oh yeah, and they are not
Okay.
happy.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's the previous podcast. That's so again, if you want to check that one out, I think it's episode 162. There are some
Yeah, it is.
expletives in the title. You'll see the little funny characters. That's how you find it. All right. But now we have Elon back for round, I don't know, 14, 15, whatever it is. And we mentioned over on the AI Chronicles podcast that OpenAI, you guys know their main product, ChatGPT. If you've been following that, it's been all over the news. Apple has an interest in automated intelligence, and they just released they did a big like news conference thing where they did a presser and they talked about Apple Intelligence. And it is known that Apple has been in talks with the company OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT. And Elon Musk says publicly, basically puts a warning out there that if Apple devices go full in at the operating system level with a OpenAI integration or a ChatGPT integration, he's going to ban them from Teslas. Now, we're going to get into this. Yes.
No.
We'll
Go
give
ahead.
you the rest of the story, Paul Harvey style, over on the AI Chronicles podcast. I don't know
Right.
how this is going to play out, but I want to have that conversation. And in full, it's a little bit of a kind of cliffhanger for you guys. But to be fair, I threw this at Jay 30 minutes before showtime. And we need time to really kind of tee this one up and make sure we cover it as good as we can. So that'll be on the next episode of the AI Chronicles, which we are going to be recording like the next business day. So it'll be out around the same time.
Just know that within this segment that Keith is just talking about, it's going to involve some Faraday bags, Faraday cases potentially. So just saying, this is how quirky this story is. So definitely stay tuned to the AI Chronicles, and you'll enjoy that one as well. We'll get into this much deeper than he has just teased you with. So, but speaking of that, man, Apple's big announcement came out, and we're going to talk about that in detail on the AI Chronicles next episode as well, which we'll be recording. What's that, like just a few days from now?
Yeah, there's a weekend in between, but yeah.
There's a weekend in between, but we'll get to it. But part of their new Apple CarPlay release, they're evidently it'll let you make your own gauges, like on the display, the digital display. And so that's kind of interesting. It's an interesting feature, and we'll get into that a little bit more in depth, as how that works with the vehicles. In fact, we'll talk a little bit about it now. Basically, who hasn't gotten in a car recently, if you rented one or if you own a new one, that you don't have the option to use your Apple CarPlay or your Android device. It is a feature that has basically made Spotify abandon some things. Right? We talked about that in the last. What was it called? It was actually called the car thing.
Yeah.
It was actually a thing. It was a thing, but it's now not a thing. But they basically bricked it, and so which makes sense that they bricked it, because you can do anything with the integration between your smart devices and these onboard systems. So, but this is pretty cool, because people complain a lot about gauge alignments, where they're at, what they look like, what they tell them, and those sorts of things. And everybody has their own preference. So I think it's a kind of a cool idea that Apple came up with this, that allows people to tweak their gauges, whether it be what's actually happening with cruise control, what's going on with fuel economy. You can set tire, if you want your tire pressure gauge to look a certain way. If you want to if you're that anal about tire pressure, you could probably set that up on this gauge cluster, any way, shape, and form that you want. Speed, everything, it's there. RPM, it's there. You can set it up. So I think it's a cool thing. And hats off to Apple for for the first time in a while, really thinking outside of the box with a certain piece of technology that's. It's not that it's a useful technology, as it's more of I kind of want that technology, which they used to be very good at, right, Keith?
Absolutely. That's what they were known for, is, there was almost a cliche type saying that Steve Jobs you just don't know you want it yet, or you just don't know you need it yet, right? Like,
right.
And then they were just so good at releasing these things that nobody cared about until they heard about it, and then they all wanted it.
Right. And you think about that with what Apple did, bringing the smartphones into play, the whole system. And, of course, there's been many other players that have come into the mix since Apple came out with their initial smartphone. You look at some of the things that used to be a norm. For example, Sirius XM. Well, it used to be Sirius or XM. Now it's Sirius XM. They've combined. But used to be, and they still do this, and I don't really understand why they do it, where when you buy a new car, you get like a 1-year free trial of that, specific to the car only, though. But when you dig in the weeds with the packages that they offer now, they're getting smart. Like streaming platforms have gotten smart with just basically doing away with a lot of things. Like if you get just the premium package through SiriusXM, you don't need to assign it to a specific car because you have the integration of your smart device in your car to where you don't really need to apply it to the vehicle because you can play it through your phone. So, I mean, so we've seen this evolve, right? And so Apple's stepping back going, well, heck, man, we can, not only can we integrate those features, we can integrate this. It's probably an app-based product, I would assume.
For sure.
And they didn't reveal who they were working with on this, but they did note that there were several manufacturers that they are working with for this to be available in, and I would be willing to bet that Ford is one of them, and I'd be willing to bet Tesla's not.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, if you're Ford, if you're Apple, like, all you got to do is just make a few phone calls and go, hey, we're thinking about, and you could stop right there. And the guy at Ford or GM on the other end of the phone is going to go, yeah, okay, what do you need?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And ironically, I can remember a day, and I used to work in wireless telecom in the infancy of digital. Like, so when we converted from analog to digital, and you guys that are longtime listeners have heard me tell stories about, I used to work in the shop. So my job in college, I'll give you a little history lesson here. Not lesson, but back prequel, I guess. I don't know. I worked in a cellular shop, and was my job to basically pull all the panels out of the car and run cellular installations. Like, you'd run the wires. Transceiver would usually go in the trunk. If it was a truck, you'd have to get creative sometimes on where to hide them. Some of them weren't weatherproof, so you couldn't put it like under the engine or under the hood. So I took apart everything from Mercedes and BMWs to Fords to Nissans to, I mean, you name it. I've had in the 80s and 90s, I had them apart, right? And we used to have, and I used to know this, like, you get 700 or 800 channels when it was on analog per cellular tower that the MTSO, the mobile telephone switching office, can handle at a time.
Right.
And you could hear the handoffs. When you would drive down the road, it would hand off from one tower to the next. Well, we would just wire these phones. Literally, you could jumper a couple pins together and open a channel. And we'd pick up conversations, because it wasn't encrypted. It was all analog, just over the air. We'd pick up the boss leaving. He'd jump in his car phone and drive off, and we'd hear him on his meetings or whatever. It was pretty great, man. So that was my job. I worked as a tech in the shop, taking cars apart.
That's awesome, man.
Drilled a hole once in a...
Your past occupational, positions are quite eclectic, man. Yeah. I might say. It's kind of
drilled a hole once in a Pontiac. It was the minivan from the mid '90s, and we used to put roof mount antennas on because the whole vehicle was metal, like the body, and that worked as a grounding plane. And we would drill a 1/4-inch hole, plug it, silicone seal it up, put the antenna on top, and you'd have to take the headliner out and but you're drilling a hole in the roof of the vehicle, right? So whatever this Pontiac minivan was, and you'll know, it was made of fiberglass.
Yeah, that was probably the Lumina
that
APV.
Was it. And I didn't know that.
Right.
And I got my hole saw out and got on the roof and cut a hole in it. And
the Lumina was that the Chevrolet?
Chevy Lumina was
that is it? It was a like a Pontiac Silhouette maybe
like
or something like same platform. Yeah.
And when you hit metal, Jay, so it'll powder at first that's the paint. And then you hit metal and you get a different it behaves differently when you're cutting into metal. And the powder just got more and more concentrated. And then I got all the way through the roof and I had an oh shit moment. And my boss came out and he was like, yeah, dude, those are fiberglass. And so, I didn't lose my job, but yeah, they had to pay to have the guy's body work done on the guy's roof because you can't roof mount an antenna on a fiberglass. Well, I mean, you can, but it doesn't because they're magnetic. It doesn't work. So.
Well, if it makes you feel better, man, I've drilled holes into water jackets before. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. But those are older applications because back in those days, the casting of cylinder heads and blocks were not as accurate as they are today. So we, in the field of rebuilding those things, we always adjusted for what we call a core shift.
Yeah.
So there could be a shift, 10 thousandths here or there. And in fact, some of if anybody's ever done machine work on cylinder heads, if you've installed valve seat inserts, if you don't know what valve seat inserts are, they're little pieces of round rings of alloy that you basically bore out the cylinder head's existing contact position of the intake or exhaust valve, and you put these inserts in. It repairs the cylinder head. You don't have to throw the cylinder head away. And sometimes those things are really, really close to water jackets, so you have to allow for float. And in those events, we would always let people know that these are thin wall castings. Be careful because you might hit water. That happened to me once. It's not fun. And once that happens, unless you're a good welder or know how to get around it, it's pretty much junk. So there you go. There's my helpful hint for the day.
Thanks, Eloise. And I had a point in all of this, and I'm sorry for the long digression. I hope it was entertaining. But back in the day that I was doing that work and you were doing your valve seat insert casting work and drilling holes in
water
things
jackets.
You shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody would talk to Apple. Like, Apple approached all these cellular carriers like Sprint, and the only one back in the day before the first iPhone came out was AT&T. They were the only one that gave them the time of day. Sprint laughed them out of the front door.
Wow.
That worked out well for Sprint, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, AT&T, I remember that, man. It's funny you mentioned that.
Nobody would give Apple the time of day. No. Now it's, what do you need?
Oh, they're giving Apple phones away if you sign up with them. Come on over to us from AT&T. We'll give you 2 free iPhones. Of course, nothing's free. Just realize that. So anyway, guys, what we're just talking about here, while that does apply to the automotive industry itself, don't forget about our AI Chronicles podcast, where we're going to really get into the recent release notes of what Apple's got coming up for their new iOS, utilizing artificial intelligence, or as they like to call it, Apple Intelligence. What's the acronyms? I mean, is there anything innovative about Apple these days? Anyway, we'll get into all that over on the other podcast, so please stay tuned to Season 2's Episode 2. Or is it 3? 3, Episode 3. There you go.
So, Jay, we're not the only people that have made mistakes. Not sure
really?
If you know that.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
Man,
this is a mistake-filled program.
I love Toyota. Not from us. I love Toyota.
No.
But I have never been. Well, I won't say never. I am cautious in my current frame of mind to be brand loyal. To blindly just hand people my money because it's got an Apple sticker or an Apple logo or a Toyota logo or Ford logo or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I come from a generation when, our family members, it's like, I'm buying GM, I don't care what.
Yep.
I'll always own a GM.
Yep.
Right? They could literally make a turd, put wheels on it, roll it out, and there were people in my family member that were loyal GM fans that would buy it.
Absolutely.
That's the brand loyalty, right?
I saw a meme the other day about a Ford pickup truck owner it was a dude standing there in high heels pumping gas into the Ford pickup truck. So it was a Chevy guy, slamming the Ford guy. So you kind of love those rivals, right? But that's what that's what we're talking about, though. The deep loyalty to a brand, which we have talked about on this podcast. Brand loyalty is a key.
It's a dangerous thing. It'll get you in trouble.
It will.
So Toyota.
Ooh, boy, Toyota.
Caught cheating.
Yep.
Not a good thing, and I'm surprised from Toyota. Volkswagen's gotten caught. Some of these other guys that have done it, I've kind of, you probably, we've heard it and we've gone, yeah, okay, I can see that. Like, but Toyota?
Right.
Toyota.
And I got to looking into this, Keith, and Akio Toyota, which, by the way, is
Toyota.
D-A, not T-A.
Yeah, right. See, I knew you were going with that.
Yeah. He basically publicly apologized and bowed, as they normally do as part of their customs.
Oh, is he going to cut off a finger?
That's what I'm talking about. I'm
Sorry,
sitting there,
sorry.
I'm reading this, and I immediately thought, my God, these people, I mean, they live and die by the sword, dude. And, I mean,
There
this
is a honor, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
If you are a complete embarrassment to your family, if you have caused grief and embarrassment to your family, they take that stuff very seriously. They don't take it lightly. So we'll have to keep my eye on Akio Toyota.
So
who
what
is
happened?
the chairman.
Tell us what happened and then what he apologized for, Jay.
Yeah, so basically they had wide-ranging fraudulent testing at Japan's top, at top, and it involved the use of inadequate or outdated data in collision testing, as well as incorrect testing of airbag inflation and rear seat damage and crashes. Some of the engine power tests were also found to have been falsified. Now, here's the thing, though, that they suspended all the production in the country in the countries where the Corolla Fielder, the Axio, and the Yaris Cross are, which is not in the U.S. So this is why, Keith, I said to you, they've basically just opened up a can of worms, because this is basically red flagging them here in the U.S. The vehicles that they have apologized for are not sold in this market, but they, again, like I said, have opened up a can of worms here. And
But we all know they're sharing some parts.
Absolutely.
And how much of this is going to bleed into American-made products that use those same components, and there's a whole that, and then there's a bottom part to that can of worms. Sorry, I was trying to find the right metaphor there for you, because Toyota was not the only one.
That's it.
Right?
That was it. I was surprised, man, that they revealed Honda, Mazda, Hino, Daihatsu, and it's just across the board where there is falsified records by these companies in Japan. And again, most of the vehicles that we're talking about are sold elsewhere, not necessarily in the North American market. But that doesn't bode well for them here in the U.S., man. That's the thing. This is going to be. Now, just remember what happened with Volkswagen and Dieselgate. That cost them a ton of money, Keith. Ton of money. What was the fine? Was near $1 billion, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, I mean, the saving grace for VW is they own so many brands that they've got the high-end brands. They've got they own Ducati motorcycles. Like they're in way more places than you think. But I'm serious here. I have a question. Maybe we'll turn this into another poll. You guys leave us a comment.
But doesn't that not go back to what we were saying earlier, what we want people to poll on? Is that to try to gain an edge? Is that to?
I think there's a difference.
Okay.
And I think you're on to it.
Yeah.
I think that this is a calculated maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody knew.
Oh, they had to
And
have.
somebody put forth an effort. Okay, so here's the differentiator, Jay. If you're burning calories doing something that you shouldn't, that's different than just not caring at all and doing nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Like not giving a shit that your 2-day guaranteed postal letter to the IRS has been sitting somewhere in a box for 5 to 10 days is completely different. They're just not going to burn any calories on that problem.
No.
Not burning the 0.00725 calories it takes to move your eyeballs up to the postmark spot and look at it in the IRS department. We're both going to get audited after this show.
I think so.
That requires burning calories, okay?
Yeah. By the way, the name of this show is Adam Carolla, IRS.
Right.
That's who we are.
So I think that's the differentiator. If you're burning calories to do something, you shouldn't. That's different, right?
Right.
But
somebody's signing.
Question is
somebody's signing the paperwork on this stuff to get pushed through.
It goes without saying somebody's going to get terminated over this. Somebody's going to get fired. Probably several somebodies. Is that going to be enough? Like,
dude,
this would scare the hell out of me if I worked for Toyota.
Absolutely, 100%, and that's why I'm saying
what over my shoulder for the next 10 years.
What a red flag for the U.S. market too, though. I mean, and we're going to get into that because there have been some platform changes to some of Toyota's trucks out there where they got rid of the V8 and they went to the twin turbo V6, the V35A, I think is what the engine is, and we'll get into that a little bit. Do you want to go ahead and talk about it now?
No, I was just going to say this. Time and time again on this program, we have talked about the differences in any government from any country making the regulations to try to drive innovation versus the auto industry driving the innovation. And I'll go back to Optima Jim and what Optima Jim said. You know, you don't want your politicians, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, or maybe your church has 3 aisles. I don't know. Wherever you land, you don't want politicians making the innovation decisions, right? Because what we saw in the 80s was they went, okay, all these cars have to have catalytic converters. And basically every car in the 80s, including the Ferrari Testarossa, was a dog because of it.
Yeah, they were.
Okay?
Yeah.
And now we have the whole EPA, mandates happening on the fuel system. And you have companies like Toyota going, and Ford going, well, we're not going to make the V10 anymore. Toyota going, we're not going to put the V8 in a lot of these. We're just going to do a V6 because it's a smaller engine. We're going to take less of a hit on the sale, and the government's not going to squeeze us so tightly.
Right.
But they can't really pull off the same power that they can in a bigger engine, and so they're fudging things.
And how are they fudging those things, Keith? Through technology, right?
Yeah. But how do you not know you're going to get caught, right? Like, at this point, how do you...
Yeah, I mean, you don't know that you're not going to get caught. I mean, if all the checks and balances are in place and they are working properly with the governing bodies, you will get caught, period. And all you're doing is basically sweeping something under the rug until somebody comes in and lifts the rug up. Right. And that's basically the best analogy I can give you. And somebody lifted the rug, and they got caught red-handed with it. And so now they are not denying it. They're admitting it. They're admitting fault, but it is going to bring a windfall of speculation on where they're at with their practices globally. And you got to think about that. This is a big deal because Toyota sells more than 10 million vehicles around the world annually, right? That's a big deal. That's a lot of cars, vehicles, trucks, equipment, whatever.
The sweeping under the rug analogy is a good one. And this is now framing that other podcast that we keep talking about, the next one coming up here. Because I had a situation that I'm dealing with right now. We're getting ready to take a trip in the RV. And in February, I was at the Newmar headquarters in northern Indiana.
Right.
And my slide out, like, these slide out rooms that you have in these motorhomes and towables, and it wasn't working all the time. And I had done some troubleshooting myself, and I took it to the guy, and I was like, is it the motor? Is it what? And he goes, well, we'll replace the controller module because I feel like, that's it.
Right.
He replaced the controller module. He did do that. And he just took there's a resist. So how these motors in these slide outs work is they hit a certain level of resistance, meaning when the slide gets all the way out and comes up against a wall, and the motor bogs down, right?
Right.
That creates a voltage resistance, and the controller shuts down so that it doesn't overload the motor, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
He just cranked the resistance all the way to the point where it was basically wide open.
Holy cow.
So replacing the part was like lip service, right? And
Yeah.
here's the logic, right? It's February. By the time this guy takes this out this summer, he can't bring it back. We only stand behind it for a month.
See, man,
Eh.
I'm telling you, people,
Under the rug.
Poll.
Yeah.
Just that falls under that category. If you
But
want us
what's
talk
going to
about
happen next is the interesting thing from Toyota, because in the RV industry, they've been rolling out crappy product for a few years, and they've had their lawyers just basically change the contracts to where, like, you can't sue them unless you go to their home state, in their hometown, wherever their headquarters is.
Mm-hmm.
They make it really, really difficult, right? And when you sign the paperwork, you're agreeing to that.
that. Right.
They won't sell it to you otherwise.
Right.
So does Toyota just go, yeah, we're just going to change the paperwork, so to buy a Toyota or a Honda or whatever, you just have to agree not to sue us if you get in a crash, or
It could happen. Yeah, I mean, it could if they get the right attorneys in play. And let's face it, if the agreements are anything like what you get when you have to agree to a new update on your iPhone, and you just go, "Yep, agree," which most people do. They don't read
Great
them.
South Park episode on that. Have you
Yeah.
seen it?
I haven't seen that episode. No.
It's from like 10 years ago, where it was, I think it was iTunes at the time, and everybody just hit the EULA, the end user license agreement. They just hit agree.
Right.
And they hid in like iTunes, like, Steve Jobs gets to come and take your soul.
Right. That's funny, man. But I mean, this is like what we experience in government. When legislation occurs and it's they pass something, and then there's an uproar because the testing of ashtrays was in the language there somewhere, but somebody missed it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the size of some of these? I mean, it's like books like this, stacks of books this thick, right?
Yeah.
And who the hell could get through all that stuff, right? Somebody's got to read it, right?
They have.
I don't think
have
they are.
interns. They have their policy writers, and they have
They're not-
people whose job
they're
it is
not
to
reading.
read. And everybody takes a section, and
Dude, they're not reading that
The problem
shit.
is, you have to. As I smack the mic, you have to consolidate that down to, okay. So, let's say you're a congressman, Jay. Okay, and I work as one of your lackeys. All right, and there's you got five
what
lackeys.
State? What state?
I don't. You pick. They're all.
Idaho.
Okay.
Idaho.
So you're Congressman J. Bob from Idaho, and
Idaho.
Idaho.
I'm
and
not
you're
in the
working
business
through
right now.
this new, and like you
I'm
said,
idle.
it's a phone book, right?
Yeah, it's more than a phone book.
I have a section. Lackey number 2 has a section. I would hope I'm your number 1 lackey. Lackey number 3 has a section, but then you come into a meeting and you've got an hour, and we've got to summarize this. So think Cliff's Notes, right? I'm not going to tell you everything that was in all the sections that I read. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to know.
Right. True.
That's how this whole
That's
thing
how it
works,
works.
everybody.
Yeah.
That's how a bill becomes a law.
That's exactly right. Well, man, I used to. Well, if you watch cartoons on Saturday mornings, man, when you were a kid, you learned all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Are you that old?
Yeah.
To where you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting old, Keith. No, I'm getting
Yeah.
old. Anyway,
I can't find my "the more you know" sound drop. I wish I had it. But,
yeah, I hear you, man. It's all good, but I tell you what, this is definitely, like I said, can of worms for these guys and others. So be on the lookout for that. What's interesting is that I just received a notice on a warranty that was extended, and you're going to see more and more of this. And we talked about this just a second ago about software updates and how they can either remedy a problem or adjust things to make them pass, right? Because that is, and that's how they'll fix this issue, by the way, in these markets, is they'll push a software update and it'll fix whatever issue they had.
So you're saying that if I had a top scan,
yes,
and I wanted to check my emissions before I went through the testing thing, and if I had something that was throwing a code, I could potentially reset it
Absolutely.
before I drove through the emissions.
You kind of could.
What if I wanted a discount on said code reader?
Well, you go to partscounterguru.com and you click on the show specials and go right there, and there is a code for it right there. What is that code, Keith?
I think it's Guru.
Is
I
it
don't
really?
know. It's in the. Just go click on the link. But let me. This is important. We are in no way condoning that you guys try to cheat.
Oh no.
On your inspections. It's a tool to give you the information you need to know to be informed. What you do with that is in your hands. Please be careful. Like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility.
PCG 10 is
There you
the 10% discount off of that, and we have a great product that we just reviewed. That video will be coming out soon. Actually, two different products that we just reviewed that will be coming out pretty soon. So anyway, and you just did the battery one, which was awesome, by the way. So that was very
It's
enjoyable.
the best. It's the best code reader we've ever looked at. No, hands down.
All right, so good luck, Toyota. And we're going to come back to Toyota a little bit later in the show here. For those of you who own a 2022 through 24 Toyota Tundra or a Lexus LX600, you want to stay tuned. So let's move on to a very, very mirror-like finish on something very, very weird and large.
What did you? I have to read what you called this.
Oh, the
'Cause it was
segment?
great. Yeah, Jay wrote "Mirror, mirror on the road."
Yeah.
So this guy bought a Cybertruck, stainless steel, right? As Cybertrucks are.
Yep.
And polished it to
Yeah.
a mirror finish.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Okay.
But
And
there's a
let me-
reason why he did it. And
Let me screen. Keep going, Jay. Go.
So this
Bring
guy,
it up on screen while you
Right.
while you discuss it.
So if any of you have seen a Cybertruck with your own eyes, you can understand where this guy's coming from, and I don't blame him for trying to do something different. This is extreme. I wouldn't have done this. It took him nearly a week with two other people to help him get this thing polished.
is your Cybertruck not unique enough already, bro, that you got to take it? I mean, okay,
Right.
yeah.
But the problem is that when this thing, let's face it, stainless steel bare like that, and again, let's go back to the DeLorean. The only reason why the DeLorean, the original DeLorean, is because he ran out of money, and it was going to be it was millions of dollars to establish a body shop, a paint shop. So they just decided to go with the stainless steel finish, and that was it, and leave the paint off of it. That's the only reason it wasn't painted. But which I'm sure you, by the way, listener, that commented on our DeLorean segment from a few podcasts later, I'm sure you're going to correct me on that as well. But and you're more than welcome to reach out if you want to come on the show. We'd love to hear your in-depth knowledge about the DeLorean, period. Anyway, because we're always learning. I like me some learning. But anyway, the bottom line is that it's a very rough exterior looking wise. You know, when you look at it, it doesn't look great at all. And you can see a ton of imperfections. And I've seen that with my own eyes on several Cybertrucks that are brand new. They just don't look good. And so now what you have, there's an availability of wraps for this thing.
Yep.
But this guy, man, knowing the work that he does allowed him to have access to the equipment he needed to get this thing.
If
to
you
be
tell me
polished like this.
he's a weed dealer, I'm going to lose it.
No, man.
Like that guy in was it Maine with the Cybertruck?
Yeah. Guy's name is Tyson Garvin. He machine polished the thing, the whole thing to a mirrored finish, and it took his whole team an entire week to complete. It really literally is now just one big mirror. Can you imagine the amount of problems that this will cause on the highway, Keith? From headlights, from other drivers around him thinking they're seeing things that are really not there. It's just it's a reflection, a full reflection. And there's one saving element to this, is that because the Cybertruck's back end is at such an angle that when a driver behind him with headlights, the reflection, it actually reflects downward and not straight back. So
back at him.
It doesn't blind the people behind them. But I can't foresee that not being an issue if you're just coming up and they're coming out, or they're crossing.
Right.
Can you imagine? I mean, what was that? It's like
you just gave me a great like visual of something that will never happen, but I would love to see it. Like I would watch the video again and again and again if it ever did. So, Jay, I've no shame in admitting this. I've been pulled over before. Like not lately, but we've all been. Have you ever been pulled over at night?
Yeah.
In the dark?
Absolutely.
What do they do, right? And they're trained to do this. They take that bright-ass
shine right in your
spotlight that
eyes.
sits on and they put it right in your mirror so it bounces right back in your eye.
Yep.
And they do that so that you can't see them, so that they have the advantage if you're up to no good, right? Meaning if you're going to do something to try to cause harm to that police officer, right?
Exactly, yep.
So you just gave me this visual of a cop doing that to this Cybertruck, and just basically getting
blinding
the sun,
himself.
Yeah, right.
Or herself. Absolutely.
Now, if
man.
it were Reno 911, the guy would like literally blind himself, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let me quote some of the stuff and what prompted him to do this. And Garvin, the gentleman's name, was addressing one of the most reported issues that people have been having with the truck. And basically, within the miserable state that the thing arrives in, which I said to you guys, he said when he first got it, it was actually extremely dirty, and he said it was just a very bad delivery experience, and just the look of it was dull stainless steel. It just not even brushed. It just didn't look good. And there are other people that have experienced the same thing. And like even rust, what appears to be rust on this thing, which is probably a stain or a contamination, not necessarily rust itself. There is a place in the manual, though, that I read here that says it advises against washing its surface in full sunlight. Who doesn't wash their car outside in the sun? Now, can understand not waxing it in the sun or drying it in the sun, pulling it to a shady area so it's much easier to maintain imperfections or water stains, if you will, because water has chemicals in it and it can cause some stains on the body finish. So yeah, but there are issues with this type of material without it being painted that you're going to encounter. And again, this is what this guy wanted to remedy, and it's beautiful. I'll give him that. It's unique as hell, man. But it has just got to be an absolute death trap on the road for people, man. Wouldn't you say?
I agree. I'm thrilled that we're one step closer to cloaking technology, but
that's it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Can you imagine seeing this thing go by you, and then all you're seeing is just reflections from the highway that you're on, and that's it. That's kind of creepy. Yeah. You think the military would do this?
They probably are into things that we don't even. Yeah,
I know that
they're 7 steps past this by now. At minimum,
there is a company that actually upgrades these things, for the police. They equip them. It's interesting, and I honestly feel that a more appropriate place for this truck would be in a military type usage situation.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think so. Just like the Hummer, man. I think it could become one of those vehicles, especially if it's really bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So keep your eyes out, guys, for a mirror finish Cybertruck. I'm sure it's we'll see if it comes our way. If it does, I'll be sure and take a picture of myself.
Yeah, you just hold up our logo, take a picture of the Cybertruck.
Right.
You get nice reflection of our.
That's it.
So Jay, I'm going to the Upper Peninsula in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you want to Say hi to the folks up there for me, will you?
Well,
The Uper?
I got to take one of my friends to the airport in Detroit.
Yeah, you gonna swing by?
When I on the way out.
Yeah.
And I saw this on, I don't know, some docuseries that I was watching a few years back. The old train station, it used to be kind of central back when railways were prominent in Detroit, and it's been sitting for like 30 years, run down, getting dilapidated. Ken Block actually shot, when he did his Detroit video, he drifted in Detroit. He drifts through the station.
He drifts through that station.
Yeah. So I had heard some various ideas and proposals to bring, because it's iconic. It's it's really, really beautiful architecture. But the problem is it wasn't really central from a transportation aspect anymore. It's kind of not near any of the major arteries from a vehicle standpoint where people, public transportation. So it wouldn't make sense to like renovate it from a rail use perspective.
Correct.
So it turns out that Ford has dumped $950 million into renovating it for their campus, right?
Right, which I found
18
very interesting.
stories.
Yeah.
Not so downtown. It's a little ways from downtown Detroit. It's not in downtown Detroit.
Right. In fact, it's 10. I think they said roughly 10 miles away from, in either direction, for like one of the Dearborn plant. And a couple of other technical campuses that they have, and then the main headquarters, I think.
So apparently Bill Ford got directly involved in this and took on leading the renovation. And so Ford's going to use it as their, what do they call it?
It's going to be their technology campus, man.
Okay.
And like you said, it's a $950 million project that has 18 story. It's a former train station.
Michigan Central Station is the
that's
I
it.
guess still the name of it, right?
Yep, 30 acres, man. That's a lot. And it's so it was initially announced in 2018. It was slated to open by 2022, but obviously the coronavirus, the pandemic and stuff, kind of delayed so many things, and that was definitely not a priority at the moment. But they finally, by 2024, have gotten it done, and they've revealed, what the interior actually looks like, and it's absolutely gorgeous. What I thought was cool, though, because again, it became a spot for vandalizing, people just sleeping, homeless folks, sleeping in there, or for. Who I think that are they unhoused now, or what?
That's the common term.
The common term. Sorry, guys, if I offended anybody. I'm just got to keep up with that. It's continuously changing, so I'm sorry. So they realized that they still had a gem on their hands because everything was there, even right down to the point where they needed more granite. By the way, they sourced the granite because they needed to replace some of the granite, man, to a quarry in Indiana that had closed, but they found out where it was, and so they basically opened up another quarry there, and so they got what they needed to get it back to its original state using all original stone.
It is beautiful. Yeah,
it is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. But what they did is, because of the history of this, they actually left elements of some of the graffiti, within the property. There you go. That gives it's not only a piece of the history, gives it some character, but it's Detroit, and I think that the whole thing behind this is to get right. Well, it is, man. I mean, it's just like, it's no different than going to New York and looking at their the
subway.
The subways are covered with it, man. I mean, it's a big deal, and there are a lot of great artists out there, man, in that genre that are actually like super talented individuals. So I think that's what they were trying to do there, was to leave elements of that of some of the known artists that were around to
and speaking of talent, they are the reason that they renovated this location was because they are, and he's flat out said it in this CNBC article, they're in a talent war. So you got to have the right, like, atmosphere is such a big deal to tech talent.
Absolutely, it is.
And they literally will sometimes make a decision just because these guys are smart. They know I'm going to be here 5 days a week for long hours. You know, I don't want to work in a closet. I don't want to work in a kind of rundown. Like, it's got to be kind of nice, you know? I want a nice, like, place to lounge and hang and talk. Meetings sometimes aren't always as formal as, you know, we think of, right? Some of them are pretty informal, where guys are sitting around brainstorming in a arcade room or what have you.
Right. There is more from a strategic standpoint. There's more to this than you know meets the eye. It's like I said, it's not located. It is in Southwest Detroit's main business district. It's the area that it's known as Corktown, which is a real trendy neighborhood. It's about 10 miles down the road from the world headquarters in Dearborn. But this is just how massive this thing is. It spans 1.2 million square feet of commercial space, including retail, restaurants, and hospitality. They were actually awarded $300 million in state, local, and historic rehabilitation tax incentives. So Ford alone did not foot the bill alone. So it was a multi-task force, you know, initiative
It's
to
smart.
It really was, because it's iconic to the city, right?
Yeah. And if Ford needs more space later on, they can take back, or whatever the proper term is there, additional space on some of these other levels.
Right. So here's the thing. Now, Ford has been extremely smart in recent years, especially through this huge ramp up of vehicles with large amounts of technology into them, specifically the EVs, and even now just a standard internal combustion engine vehicle still has the same technology on them, other than it's not a battery operated, electric propulsion. They position themselves because right next door to this is the Detroit Public Schools Book Depository building that houses more than 600 employees from about 100 startup companies. So they're tech companies. So I think Ford is if you look at that and what they've done here, they are ringing the bell to people saying, hey, Detroit is not just Motor City. We're more than that. We're coming back, and this is a big deal. This is a huge part of the comeback of Detroit, I think. And for Ford, look what they did. They moved the football stadium to where it is now, which was a huge success and has the namesake of Ford. It's Ford Field. But guess what? Hosting a Super Bowl, having a winning franchise, things like that bring revenue into a city. They make you relevant again. And so this is kind of timely for Detroit. And I think it's going to bring a crap ton of jobs to this city, man. And we shall see. Would you move there?
Not right now. No. I'll report back. I don't do winters.
I was about to say the only downside for me from that, and I've been to Michigan, and we both have been to Detroit together.
We've been there together. Yeah.
Right. It's a beautiful area. It really is. It has a lot to offer.
In the summer,
it's great. And that's where I was going with that, because I've been to the Uper. I've been to the Door Peninsula up in Wisconsin. I've been on Lake Michigan in the summertime, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But, man, the winters are brutal.
Yep.
Just ask anyone from Buffalo, right? So
yeah.
Cleveland, Detroit, those Rust Belt cities, it would have to be one heck of an incentive plan for me to move up there.
Yeah,
so
right.
you're not getting me to go there. I will go there, but I'm not going to live there. I'll go there in the summertime.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
there you go. Chicago in the summer is great too. So, but do you think that this is a? I mean, let's face it. Now, this is a Ford family member too. Now, by the way, this is the grandson.
Yeah.
Do you think that in some way, shape, or form, there's so much more to this than just Ford, right? Is it truly a gift back to the city of Detroit for what Detroit has done for Ford? Yeah?
I think so. I think, there's this realization that has happened to both Ford and GM, which is they're not going to be able to leave that state
Right.
and that city. Yes, they have other major centers around the country and the world,
Right.
but their headquarters is where it is.
Right.
And, Bill Ford may have multiple houses, and I'm sure he does all over the country, but he's not. He's going to have to always have a presence as long as he's a part of that company in Detroit.
Right.
And like it or hate the winners or not, that's still the last two big auto manufacturers. Stellantis has been fragmented, like they're all over the place in terms of where their headquarters are.
Well, they have to be.
Ford and
because of how big they are.
GM, until they get, if and when they ever become a part of a different company, but as long as they're the independent companies they are today, they are there in Detroit.
Right. Right. And so there you go.
Yeah, Bill Ford, if you got to live here, let's clean it up, right?
Right. Right. And again, this is advantageous to them with building their workforce of talented, technical, minded people, and that's the direction that the auto industry has gone, and it has had to. And so it makes sense that they would do this. And
until you can build the perfect car,
right, which is
you gotta have,
we'll get to one that people thought was going to be the perfect car, but there you go.
Yeah, until you can build the perfect car, you're gonna have to have a workforce that can handle the supply chain and the economy that surrounds the automotive industry.
Right. There you go. So, good job, Ford. Good job, Bill Ford. Keep on pumping them F-150s out.
If you think you can build the perfect car, you might want to go through some quality control testing before you make that part of your rollout strategy.
Wait a minute. Didn't Fisker build a perfect car?
This is interesting, Jay. So Sideshot came to me a couple months ago, and he was like, Dad, we can get a Fisker Ocean right now, brand new, for like half price. And think about how cool it would be to have like an SUV EV. And I went, I know where you're going with this, son. And yes, there are some advantages there, and it's, cost savings, but where are you going to find parts for it? What if they go under, right? And he was kind of like, because he's never had to experience that, he was kind of like, yeah, you don't need to worry about that. Well, it turns out,
I hate to say I told you so.
You do have to think about that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So,
because nothing's perfect, right?
Right. So, people are having a hard time finding parts for their Fiskers.
Yeah. And why is that? Because they didn't plan for it.
They didn't really think about this parts supply chain.
That's right.
And I think part of that is they got in a hurry.
They got in a hurry, and they were, I think that is trying to get it rolled out, right? Because everybody was like, you got to meet the mark, right?
Right.
And that is the problem. And and I hate to keep going back to it, but whatever Rivian was doing during those times, man, everybody needs to take the page out of their book, because everything that Rivian has done has not come out on the bad end. Have there been hiccups? Absolutely. But they were prepared for those hiccups, and they address those hiccups. And I'm seeing more and more Rivians on the road today, obviously, than I did a year ago. And I'm talking with a bunch of drive-out tags lately, man. So people are getting them. They're buying them. In fact, I saw one on a lot the other day, and I was asked if I would be interested in buying one. And I said, yeah, but let's get a couple more generations down the road, and I'll buy one. And see, that's the problem with when you're rolling out something, a new car, a new vehicle, brand new vehicle.
Never buy first gen.
Never buy first gen anything. That's absolutely correct. That is
unless you're just completely okay with being a beta tester,
right?
Which does have some cool,
And some people are okay with that, But this particular situation where there are horror stories of people that have not been able to repair their vehicles for 6 months or more. And now, granted, everybody at Fisker's denying all these claims.
I'm gonna hold court here in just a second, Jay. Okay,
but you know where I'm going with this.
Go ahead with that. Yeah.
So I mean,
first of all, and I don't know the answer to this, and I was trying to figure this out, and this would be a concern of mine in buying anything, a Rivian. Anything that's not a traditional, like a Toyota, a Ford, a place that doesn't have a dealership, is if you buy a new vehicle and it has a warranty on it, what does that service model look like? If I go buy a Toyota, I know I can take that Toyota to a dealership, any Toyota dealership, and if I'm traveling to the Upper Peninsula and there's one in Detroit or Saginaw or wherever, and they'll work on it, and they can get parts for it, right? But if I buy a Rivian, I know Tesla's toyed around with a come-to-you model. Like, what does Fisker's repair model look like? Do you happen to know, or do we need to dig into that in a future episode?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that they don't have.
Well, maybe that's why I couldn't find anything out on it. They don't have it.
They don't. I mean, here's the thing, man. Let me just give you a couple examples here, Keith. One of their customers, Nicole Ellis, told, and we're getting this from Inside EVs, one of our colleagues in the industry, that her Ocean's passenger side footwell gets soaking wet anytime it rains, right? It rains heavily because there's an issue with her passenger door. Fisker hasn't been able to source the necessary part for her for months. And she came back and just said, luckily I live in Southern California where it doesn't rain a lot, but when it does, I have this problem. Now, how bad is it when you own a vehicle that you cannot get a repair on it, something like that, like a body? I mean, these vehicles get wrecked. And in one instance here, man, the insurance company just totaled it because they couldn't get parts for it. Period. And that is where the Fisker sits, is they have zero supply chain, and these are true stories. And when you're saying that, when Fisker comes out and says they're denying all of these things, but yet you have the real world, real time examples going on, then somebody's story is not jiving here. And I'm gonna err on the side of Fisker's not divulging everything here.
So I wanna be fair. Okay, you've told us where you stand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you what Fisker says. For those of you that you've heard Jay's response, let me tell you what they said that Jay just responded to. So first of all, I did a little bit of homework before we started this podcast, and I literally just Googled like where to get a Fisker serviced, and the most prominent result that I kept finding in Google was the
Bridgestone.
The Fisker forums. It's called Ocean Forums.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's oceanforums.com, I guess.
Right.
And every single time somebody started the thread about service on their Fisker, it turned into an argument. People would do these troll drive-bys where they would go, "Don't buy a Fisker, unless you just need a car that doesn't work." And that's not helpful, trolls. The guy's out there asking where he can get service, and you're not providing helpful information. You're providing an opinion on not buying the car, which has nothing to do with his question. Okay? So honestly, the forum administrators kept having to come back around and go, I'm going to lock this thread if you guys don't get it back on track. I never could get anywhere.
Right.
So I went over to the Fisker's official website, and I searched that way, and they have some dealers. Like there's one in Atlanta, there's one in Indianapolis, there's one in Albany, New York, there's one in Jacksonville, Florida, there's Miami, there's one in Charlotte.
But that didn't happen until January of this year.
Sure. Kansas City, there's one in Sacramento, there's one in Newport, Costa Mesa. Okay, so they're around. If you live close to one of those cities, you've got options, okay? But Fisker says to these reports of part shortages that Jay was just talking about, this is false. Our service, this is a press release that they released back to Inside EVs.
Mm-hmm.
Our service department did plan for and establish a parts inventory. The inventory forecast was made by the service team, and the purchasing department supported those requests. Our suppliers are obligated to provide 10 years worth of parts. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that came directly from a Fisker spokesperson.
Right.
Now, Jay, you've worked in the parts industry and the automotive industry for a good while. Is it possible to make that statement and have that statement be true, but also not have a good enough supply chain in place that the other side of this could also be true?
Yes.
Okay. And just so that our viewers and listeners understand, how can both things be true?
Everybody has a role in this, period.
Okay.
And so, now again, when you look at the manufacturing level, we've said this how many times?
Too many to count.
Too many again. So you've got the delivery contracts, right? Everybody has an agreement in place for delivery, and most of the times at the manufacturing level, it's just in time. They're not carrying inventory typically at the manufacturing level.
So whose job is it? So the guys that make the parts don't make the parts until they're told to make the parts.
Correct.
Right?
That is correct.
Is it possible, Jay, that yes, they are obligated to produce the parts for the next 10 years if they're told to make the parts, but they haven't been told to make the parts?
That is correct.
Or they haven't been told to make enough parts?
That is correct. Somebody is watching something that is saying, let's don't put that order in yet.
So
right?
Coming back to the press and telling the press this is false, and then using the excuse that our suppliers are obligated to make the parts doesn't justify your statement that it's false.
Correct.
They could be obligated to make apple pie.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you have a parts shortage.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
somebody somewhere did not factor something in, or they just didn't have the capital to go buy the product.
Which is probably the most likely explanation.
Absolutely,
if we're going
man.
down the Occam's razor path here. It's a cash flow issue.
Absolutely.
Somebody's got to pay for those parts when they're ordered. They don't want to do it. Right?
Look, everybody involved is a business. Everybody has a hand in it. Everybody's trying to run a business. Everybody has a fiduciary obligation to their company. That's the way it works, right? What?
Yeah. Using the big words today.
Well, I mean, the
Jay.
bottom line is this, man. And I've been involved. Keith and I both have worked in the manufacturing side of engine components. We get it. We understand. Suppliers have to be paid. And they're not going to carry anything. They're not going to make stuff. We specifically, I have been aware of situations for companies that I have worked for where we're not going to start until we have a purchase order and payment on the way. We're not starting the order.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not making
because,
it just based on your forecast.
There were periods of time that Jay and I lived through where GM couldn't pay their bills.
Absolutely.
And they wanted the parts, but then they were 90 days, 100 days, 120 days out from paying for a part that you gave them literally 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and you still haven't been paid for it.
100%
right?
correct.
GM's promise to pay me doesn't keep my company in business.
Exactly.
A check does.
Right.
Money does.
Right.
Right? Fisker's promise to pay for those parts which is already shaky, isn't going to keep those manufacturing companies, which, by the way, is not Fisker. That's contracted out to third parties.
Correct.
I think you already said that.
Yep.
Just to make it clear, crystal clear for everybody. So Fisker's doing damage control right now for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't blame them, but I also know unless you got money to burn, it's risky.
It is very risky, and when you
to buy a
have
Fisker.
when you have someone within the organization that came right out and said, and of course Fisker also denies this, that they felt that they had built the perfect car, that they wouldn't need to have excess components to keep on hand for repair, when in fact, another part of this, there was an employee that was bringing air conditioning vents in luggage out of the European part where their main plant is over in Europe there, bringing air conditioned vents over, just to, you know what I'm talking about, where it oscillates and whatever.
Yeah.
Bringing that over in suitcases, man, to save on freight.
I mean, this kind of goes back to, I know there are probably exceptions to this in the world, in life, but Picasso's first painting probably wasn't perfect. It probably wasn't his best work. Henry Ford's first attempt, probably not the best. I'm not even sure Thomas Edison is responsible for the creation of the light bulb after learning what I've learned, but even if you want to give him credit, didn't get it right on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th, 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60th, 70th, 80th time. Took a while.
Right.
So thinking that you're going to nail this, right? First time out of the gate, new car company, never built a car. I know there was a Fisker before this, everybody, but it's a different company.
It is.
It was
Absolutely.
a different company.
Everybody loves a good fisking. If you own one of these guys, you just got fisky.
So, I'm sorry. I hope this works out for you guys that love the company. I hope they turn it around. It's not looking good right now.
I don't think so. I got a prediction on that. I think they're done. I really do.
Are you going to put them in the scrap heap with Lordstown?
I think so. just like Lordstown, man. I think it's done. Again, it's very hard to start in this industry and be successful.
Yep.
Very, very few do it. Very few do it, man. And so this is not surprising to me. What is surprising to me is a company like Rivian that can come out and do it correctly. Not without, issues.
They made mistakes.
They did.
The difference is that, and this has a lot to do with OJ, the founder, said, we'll do better. We're sorry. We'll fix it. We'll make it right.
That'd
and
be
every
RJ,
single
not OJ.
time Rivian has underperformed, they have spoken to that, and they have owned it and taken responsibility and promised to do better.
Yep.
And to some extent, Toyota did that when they got caught with the whole thing, the safety ratings that we were just talking about.
We've talked about this on podcasts in the past. What makes a loyal customer to these brands? And it's those types of actions where you come out of the chute and go, we screwed up and we're going to take care of it. And when you do that, that's when you're building brand loyalty right there, man. And so Ford is totally known for that. They come out of the chute most of the times, and sometimes when the vehicle's in production or just out of production and just starting to deliver, and they just have to hold up shipping things until they get the stuff right. And that's just how it should be, guys. That's not phoning it in. That's doing the right thing.
Mountain or whatever.
That's
it
right.
was,
Yeah,
right?
remember that? Yeah, remember that? They owned it, man. And that's how it should go. So, all right. So, for all of you Fisker Ocean owners out there, good luck to you. Unload it if you can. Good luck. Take your loss and move on, because I don't think you're going to get parts for it.
I'll do what these clowns on social media and the various auction sites do to me when I try to sell some of my toys, like my motorcycles. They go, I trade you my 1938 John Deere Special for it.
Right.
Any of you Fisker Ocean owners want to trade like pink slips for my go-kart, let me know.
Yeah.
We'll even Steven it.
There you go, man. There you go.
I'll throw in a bag of peanuts just to make it a good deal. I don't know. All right.
This-
so
this-
is Hyundai going to do the right thing? And this remains to be seen.
This
We're
next
watching
story
this one.
blew
Yeah.
my mind. I still cannot believe in 2024 that we're going to talk about this. But go ahead.
So this is an oh shit moment. And,
Big time.
you know, I wish this was funny. It's as much as I want to laugh about it, every time I start to like think about the humor in it, I'm pulled right back into the seriousness of it. And you know, I don't know, man. I joke about a lot of things and I try to never take things too seriously. You start talking about kids and you start talking about people that you're ruining their chances of having a decent life. That ain't funny.
No.
That ain't. So Hyundai got caught. Basically, the United States Department of Justice is suing Hyundai over some child labor violations.
Yeah.
And this is a plant that I go by a lot. It's outside of Montgomery. They have a test track out there. They make the sedan, one of the sedans there. And kids have been working in the parts supplier that was owned by Hyundai that they recently separated from. And I think part of that separation was probably due, in fact, to some scrutiny going on over said children working in that factory. Now, this is a kind of poverty-stricken area of not just Alabama, but the country.
Also,
and there's some tough times.
Also with, heavy with immigrants coming into the country.
Yep.
So where those types of practices outside of the U.S. are not uncommon.
No, but you have some looking the other way going on here inside of our...
Yes, and that is this is, and if you look at some of the instances that they pulled out here, specifically there were 3 children that age ranged anywhere between, I think it was 12 and 16 years old.
Yep.
3 kids. They were Hispanic.
Working longer than 40-hour-a-week shifts.
Working 60 hours a week, dude. In a metal fabrication plant.
Yep.
Running machines that are metal fabrication. That's extremely dangerous. And
I know the other side of this argument, okay? And oh boy. I got fired up for a second, Jay. So and Jay, forgive me if this is over the line and you don't agree with this, and I understand where people could say yes, but their families need the money. What else do you expect them to? I don't care. That is a child. That is not their place.
No, I completely agree with you.
And if it's on the parents to pay those bills and put food on the table. You are taking the future away from that child. They're not in school.
Mm-hmm.
They're not learning. They will not have the opportunities to better themselves.
That's right.
I don't care. That does not hold water with me. And it's against the law, quite frankly. That's why the Department of Justice is going after them. Now, Hyundai is playing this card of, well, we didn't know. And, we did our own investigation, and we severed ties with the smart manufacturing plant. They are now their own company. That smells like you're trying to cover it up, guys.
Yep, it sure does. And they were. This is exactly what they did. They separated themselves from it when, in fact, they were actually, their payroll was their payroll.
Right.
And that's the bottom line, and that's what got them in trouble. This is a big deal, and Hyundai is not the only one doing this. Not the only one doing this. And this could be another can of worms for the automotive industry, man.
I mean, so, yeah, the town is Luverne, Alabama. It's just outside of Montgomery.
Smart is was the name of the company that, by the way, it changed its name to ITAC.
Yeah, right. Like, because if you get caught and you get a bad name,
Right.
we all know this, right? Comcast, you just change your name to Xfinity.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the way it works.
So they at that plant made the Hyundai Santa Fe, the Tucson, and the Santa Cruz.
Right, and Kia. There's Kia vehicles also that are affected
Yep.
by this as well
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that they don't get into. But this is just completely wrong, guys. This is the kind of stuff that gives industries a bad name.
I mean, so what's going to happen here is because on the one hand, Hyundai could just go, okay, we'll shut the plant down. You know?
They could shut the plant down,
And
but
then
they're
you're going to
shooting
get a revolt of actual like adult workers that are going to lose jobs.
right. But not only that, then the production is down also. So Hyundai does lose out there as well. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But sometimes the loss in that manner is yeah, I see that. The loss in that manner is way better than the repercussions from staying there and having to deal with it. Now, guarantee you that there's a watchdog out there now on this. They are being heavily watched, and they are being heavily audited. And this could go on for a long time, and I'd be interested in knowing what the extent of these lawsuits actually are. Who pays the fine? Who all pays the fine?
If it's the Department of Justice,
It's a big deal, dude, with the DOJ involved.
it's going to get. There's going to be people crawling through this, the books, the records, all of it, right?
Yeah.
Pay stubs. There's going to be audits.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
I agree with you, man. Look, that's just a bad deal, and we always hate to end on bad notes, but we're going to pick you back up because I'm sure that Keith's got something picked out today to end the show on. We're going to go ahead and wrap up today. It's been an awesome show, Keith. Thanks so much, man. I always enjoy having the opportunity to sit down and talk to you. It's what we do.
Told you guys it was going to be a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have a couple things going on, and we need to go ahead and wrap up for the day. And
Least of which is the lighting that has started to come through my window and ruin. You just sort of make lemonade, but the lemonade squeezer is getting more difficult. To press here.
Exactly. Your hands.
It's kind of comical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. So.
Yeah. So, okay. Couple things really quickly. Is that even the correct grammar?
Yes.
Support the show. Go to our website. Click on the show specials tab. It's partscounterguru.com. And
We have some cool hats, too, guys. You can buy hats on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. That's another great way to support the show. And we'll send you a hat. So, you
That's
get
it.
something. Now, if you want to buy stuff for your car, if you want to buy stuff off Amazon, if you want to buy an e-bike, all those are linked and more over on our website. The Hitchfire grills, something we're getting ready to do a whole bunch of for is our friends that make race ramps and Black Widow Pro that does a lot of ATV stuff, motorcycle stuff, and Max tie downs. Which if you guys that own your bikes, your motorbikes, your sport utility stuff, motorcycles, you name it, you got to strap that stuff down. We've got some good deals on their stuff.
And can I interject on that as well, guys? Just to tell you guys how we value these brands. They value us too, and because of that, they offer us an exclusive discount code for you that you can on our website. Go to Show Specials. You will see all of those codes right there. So make sure you grab those because you're not doing yourself a service by not using that. So because you're not going to get that discount anywhere else.
Buy what you were going to buy anyway. It's not like it's going to cost you more. In fact, it'll cost you less if you use the codes. And
Works
we
on
all
everything
because it supports the show. Yeah.
Works on everything too. They've given us that because it used to be just exclusive to certain products. They're giving us an entire run for the entire catalog they're offering. So go buy what you want and use our codes, and that'll help us out.
Yeah. So I don't know why I'm giving you fair warning, Jay.
Okay.
The next few episodes and segments are going to focus on the struggle and the journey. And I don't know why, because things have been getting better for me anyway.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
for PCG, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that. I posted some. I ran a 5K the other day and sent Jay the numbers, and I was like all back, and it was good. I've had some health stuff. Things have been getting better, but I'm just warning you. For those of you guys that are out there having a tough go of it, I'm thinking of you in these next few shows that I'm going to end with some positive messages for those of you that are going through struggles. So beyond that, tell a friend about the podcast. Make sure you subscribe. And I will leave you with this. Struggling does not mean failure. This is a big one of mine. Struggling means you are successfully not giving up. And struggling also means that you are successfully getting better, because out of every struggle, there are learnings. Failures sometimes are the best teachers. Embrace the struggle, everybody. It will be worth it. For my pal Jay over there, that's 2 shows in a row I've gotten the direction right, by the way.
You did, man.
I'm Keith. It only took me 6 years. Thank you guys for making this a part of your lives. See you on the next one.